Hi, hello, good evening, everyone. And Shiva is your trainer. He will do the session on OIC, first session. You feel like as your friend or colleague, and you can ask whatever you have doubts and you can clear out. Shiva sir, you can start take the introduction and start the session. Kindly give us introduction one by one, please.
Yeah, I'll take it up, sure, from here. Hello, everyone. Good evening. I'll give my introduction first. And before I give my introduction, first of all, warm welcome to Oracle Integration Cloud Training at Sanari Training Institute. My name is Shiva. I'll be your instructor for the course. I have around 15 years of real-time work experience. I'm currently working as a principal consultant at one of the top US-based product company. And previously, I worked for top US-based consulting companies. And for the past 5-6 years, I've been working in ERP cloud projects or the Oracle Integration Cloud implementation projects. Most of them they work with ERP as an integration specialist. So I've been using this product for 5 to 6 years now. Initially, we had ICS, which was offered as a standalone service, integration cloud service. But then a couple of years down the line, Oracle has repackaged that ICS as OIC. Okay, so we'll talk about what other components do we have in OIC along with ICS as we progress in the session. Uh, could you guys introduce yourself? Just say one line about yourself and let me know what are your expectations from this course so that we could take a note out of it. Okay, please go ahead, guys.
Okay. So, hi everyone. My name is Guru Dutt Patale. So, I have 10 plus years of experience as an Oracle Apps technical consultant. So, along with that, I'm also a corporate trainer for Apps Technical. And I'm just looking out for hands-on experience on OIC along with the certification guidance.
Okay, fine. Yeah,
So,
I'll talk
because we are
about.
because
Yes, go
soon we
ahead.
are going to start the Oracle Cloud practice in my organization. So,
Okay,
so I,
okay.
yeah, so I just wanted to have a good hands-on experience along with the certification guidance.
Yes, of course. You will get both. Yeah, I'll talk about the certification at the end of today's session or probably tomorrow. If time permits, I'll
Okay.
talk about it today itself. Yeah, point noted. Yes. Others, could you please go on? If you don't like speaking up, guys, it's absolutely fine. We don't want to push you. Just drop a line, one line in chat saying that so and so, 10 years or 15 years, whatever experience you have, and what is it that you are looking for forward from this course. That is what we'll be mainly interested in.
Hi, my name is Vivek. I've
Hi,
been
Vivek.
working in Oracle Server and MuleSoft, 20 plus years of experience. I work as a manager in EY. The reason I'm taking this
Okay.
is I need to get a certification. So that's the reason I'm doing it.
Okay.
And just to, since I have Oracle Server background, I think I should be able to pick up very quickly. So
Yes.
looking forward to get my certification done. That's it. Thank you.
Got it. Thank you. And as you said, yes, it
Hi
will
Shiva.
certainly. Yes, please go on.
Hi Shiva. Dadasu here.
Hi, Shiva.
I'm having a 10 years of experience, but I'm having zero experience in Oracle technologies. I'm fully Java developer, and recently I want to learn this OIC because we have our company having a plan to migrate a current product to Oracle Cloud. So we started some POCs and we are doing that. 1 month of experience I'm having OIC, but I want to be
Okay.
expertise in OIC.
Okay. Fine. Got it. Yeah. Anyone else wants to introduce, guys?
This is Mirza Samir Beg. I have been working as a senior Oracle Apps DBA. So I am interested in this course because we are moving to the cloud. So I want to take this course and do a certification on this.
Okay, good to know. Yeah. Anyone else wants to introduce yourself, or are we done? Are we done with everyone?
Yeah, hi, this is
Hello,
Prince. Yeah, I have about 16 years of Oracle ERP experience. There's a project going on in my company which is led to ICS, so I thought of learning it.
Okay, fine. Thanks everyone. Thanks everyone for dialing in today. And today is the first session for your batch, and it's of course Oracle Integration Cloud Training at Sanari Training Institute. And what do we have an agenda today? Let me go into the slide share mode. We're going to talk about these topics today. We'll talk about before we talk about what is OIC. We'll try to understand why do we need a product like Oracle Integration Cloud in first place. For those of you who might not know what is OIC, it stands for Oracle Integration Cloud. It's one of the integration product provided by Oracle. It's basically a PaaS product which you could use to build either integrations or custom business process or custom web applications as per the client requirements. So why do we need a product like OIC? We'll talk about we'll talk about the need first, and we'll talk about the integration challenges that you have in today's world with the cloud everywhere. And we will talk about how OIC solves those challenges. Oracle Integration Cloud as an integration product, how does it solve those challenges? And we'll talk about the components that are there in the OIC. Oracle Integration Cloud has 3 components. It has integrations work area. We refer to it as ICS, even though it's not exactly ICS, but we refer to it as ICS to make it easy for just for the reference purpose. OIC has 3 components: ICS, which you could use to build integrations to connect systems together, and you have PCS, Process Cloud Service, which you could use to build custom business process. It could be any custom business process that your client might have. It could be a travel approval process or expense report approval process or a performance management process, any business process. If your client has some custom business process that needs to be brought over into cloud, or if it's an approval process that your client has or client needs, then you could build it in PCS. And you have another cloud service called VBCS. It stands for Visual Builder Cloud Service. Visual Builder Cloud Service. You could build web applications and mobile applications using VBCS, Visual Builder Cloud Service. Okay, you could build both web applications as well as mobile applications using VBCS. So OIC, it's not just an integration product, or you can't. I mean, of course, you could build integrations, but apart from that, you could also build web applications as well as custom business process in PCS. We'll talk about the flavors in which OIC is available. This is mainly for clients to worry about when they try to take an OIC license. What option should they choose? Should they go for standard edition or enterprise edition? What are the differences? So there are 2 OICs available in 2 flavors, standard edition and enterprise edition. We'll talk about the differences between those 2 and what should clients typically opt for. And we'll talk about the course content as well. We'll give you an overview of the course content. It is attached as a handout in the meeting. See if you could download it and go through it. See if you could download it now and go through it later on. And if you have any questions, I can take up those questions tomorrow. Okay, let's move on. Why OIC? So in 2009, I think Salesforce is one of the first companies to come up with a cloud product. It is one of the first companies. So it started offering its CRM product on the cloud. Okay, And at that point in time, yeah, nobody believed in cloud, and especially Oracle, it didn't believe in cloud till few years back. Okay, but there were few companies which have invested heavily in the cloud. They started doing it right from 2009. But if you if you look at today's world, everywhere you see cloud, right? And the disruptive or the innovative disruption that happened in the form of cloud, it has brought about a new integration challenges. And what are those integration challenges? Now you have cloud offerings from multiple vendors, like you have cloud offerings from ADP, Salesforce. You have multiple cloud offerings from Oracle, like you have HCM cloud, ERP cloud, CPU cloud, and many other cloud applications. And you have you have many other vendors who provide cloud services. I've just mentioned few in here. But what are the integration challenges that are brought about by the cloud? So with the cloud applications, or with the cloud invention, how do you integrate one cloud application, say for example Oracle ERP cloud with Salesforce? Why do you think there will be a need? Because any company or a client, they're not going to use only products from a particular vendor. Most of the clients do use products from multiple vendors. So you might see a client who might be using Salesforce for as a CRM product, and they might be using Oracle ERP cloud to maintain their finance modules. So in such case, if you take the scenario of that particular client, so he might come up with an integration use case, and he might say that whenever a business user creates a customer in Salesforce, I want the same customer to be created in ERP cloud without any manual intervention. So how do you integrate one cloud application with another cloud application offered by different vendor? And how do you integrate one cloud application with another cloud application offered by the same vendor? And most importantly, it's not that when clients are moving to cloud, they are taking a very cautious approach. So if the client has been using, say, 20 or 30 modules of eBusiness Suite, they are not going to wake up one morning and say that, yeah, we're going to dump everything or move all the 30 or 40 modules to cloud in a single implementation project. They're not going for a big bang implementation. Most of them do want to test the waters. They want to see if the cloud really works for them. So what they have been doing is, yeah, initially the clients were very skeptical about the cloud security, your application being, or the data and application being sitting in Oracle data center. So there were a lot of concerns around it. All of it has dried down now, and most of the clients, even the banking clients or the other clients who deal with sensitive information, are in cloud now. Okay. Having said that, yeah, when clients start their cloud journey, they won't move everything to cloud in one implementation project. So if they're using, say, financials and HCM modules in eBusiness Suite, they would probably move financials to ERP cloud first, and they will retain HCM, or they will retain the human capital management modules in the eBusiness Suite. In such case, you have some modules sitting in cloud and some modules sitting in on-premise. And certainly when you have a scenario like that, you will definitely have a need to integrate those systems. And how do you integrate cloud applications with the application sitting on-premise? OIC has an answer for that. And it's not just eBusiness Suite. It could be any on-premise application. It could be SAP, PeopleSoft, or JD Edwards. So what are the three key integration challenges? How do you integrate two different cloud applications offered by single vendor? How do you integrate one cloud application from one vendor with a cloud application of different vendor? How do you integrate cloud application with on-premise applications? So these are all the kind of questions that were brought about by the cloud invention. Earlier, we didn't had many of the scenarios like this one, right? So it was earlier. It was, I mean, when I say earlier, I was talking about before cloud scenario. So you had all the applications on-premise. And most of the times you used to build the point-to-point integrations with the typical integration technologies like SOA or others. But with cloud, yeah, all of it has changed now. So the landscape has changed, and the new integration challenges have emerged.
Okay, can you ask a question?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, question. I work on AWS. I know we can do a scaling. So we do have a auto scaling and all that. So in Oracle, two questions. One is there a, let's say if any of the services taking, one of the integration is taking hit, can I just scale that API alone? Also, do you have the auto scaling in Oracle, which can scale automatically and scale down?
Yeah, if you compare AWS, you have to compare it with OCI, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, not with OIC. Okay, AWS, Azure, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, all of them are comparable. So OIC,
yeah, MuleSoft, I'm just comparing with MuleSoft, sorry.
Yeah, MuleSoft, in MuleSoft, yes, you deploy it to cloud, and yes, it scales automatically. In OIC also, it happens automatically, but in the background. So whenever there is a need, yes, the required resources can be used up in cloud, but of course the client will have to pay for what they use. Okay, you don't have like as you do in MuleSoft, you cannot explicitly pick up the number of cores you want to deploy for each worker. You cannot explicitly do those settings, but yes, you could work with Oracle Cloud support team to ensure that enough resources are available for that. Yeah, auto scaling. It's not exactly auto scaling, but yes, depending on the load, you could schedule, you could ensure that the resources are available for you in time. Okay, but in OIC, you will be able to predict what are the kind of payloads that you are looking at.
Okay. And you have MQ in between, right? Like if I have a source in a Docker system and source system is pumping in millions of messages and my downstream application cannot handle it, so I need to have an MQ. Is there a MQ possible in Oracle? Queues.
There is not exactly JMS queues, but you have an option. You have something called as a message channel in OIC, where you could drop the messages in, and those messages, yes, you won't be able to access that queue, but yes, the messages will be queued in there, and you could build another service which will pick up that message and deliver it to the downstream system. I'll talk about that in a while. Yeah, probably few slides later on. There's one slide where I talk about integration styles, and you will get your answer for this question. Okay, fine. Okay. So if you look at the end-to-end process, STS end-to-end process, one of the key disadvantages, not exactly disadvantage, but yes, you have integrations, and you might have had process as well in the analytics, but those are all decoupled. It's like you have, so if you take the case of requisition to receipt, like you have many cycles in between requisition to fulfillment to invoice to payment, and payment to receipt. And any product could be used in these cycles. It could be Oracle Procurement Cloud to SCM Cloud, or it could be SAP to Infor or some other system. So a typical the way integrations used to be built is you have point-to-point based integrations, and you have the analytics which would have given you visibility only to that particular step. But in OIC, the advantage that you get is you have three components in OIC. As I said, you have integrations, process, and analytics, and apart from that, you have VBCS as well, Visual Builder Cloud Service. So all the components can talk to each other, and what that means is if you want to build an end-to-end flow, not just about integrating products. If you want to build end-to-end flow, you could easily do it with the help of OIC. So we'll see how. So the integration challenges, legacy integration style usually is too complex. Data couldn't easily be moved from cloud to on-premise, and you could do it easily with the help of a connectivity agent in OIC. I'll talk about it more. A business process automation was not aligned with application integration without OIC, but in OIC you do have a process cloud service which you could use to align your or to automate the business process and align it with application integration. So it's like you could build a web application And to that web application, if you need to have an approval process attached, you could build a custom business process in PCS, and you could kick off that custom business process from VBCS application. And from the PCS, after the approvals are obtained, you could invoke an integration that you have built in ICS, and that integration will deliver the message or create the transaction in a destination system. It could be ERP cloud or HCM or cloud or whatever might be the case. And the analytics were mostly local without OIC, but in OIC, it says that it claims that you get a cross application and cross departmental view, but this is not something that we really care about as an integration specialist. Yeah, the focus will be on the other points. And how does OIC solve these challenges? It simplifies integration build. It uses configuration approach. It might sound like an exaggeration, but it's true. You don't have to write even a single line of code. It's a zero code approach. So it uses configuration approach, which means you don't have to write any code for that matter. And this is applicable for all the three components in OIC. In OIC, you have ICS, PCS, and VBCS, right? ICS, yes, integrations. You might say that even in SOA, if I had to build integration, I don't write code. But that is fine. But if you take the case of VBCS, Visual Builder Cloud Service, we have told that I've told that it can be used to build web applications. So when you think about web application development, there might be a lot of things that come to your mind: HTML, JavaScript. How do you build user interface? How do you build data source? How do you connect them together? Right. So all those questions, and you might come to a conclusion that yes, there might be at least some coding knowledge required for that. But that is not the case. OIC uses configuration approach, which is like all you need to have to build integrations in OIC, integrations or a custom business process or a web application in OIC is a web browser, and then that's all you need. You don't even need a JDeveloper, or you don't need any other software to use OIC to build the components or to test the components. Yeah, for testing the components, you might for testing the software, you might rely on some testing tools, but that's outside of OIC. Okay, so OIC, since it uses a web-based approach, so if I log into the OIC instance, so this is how OIC instance looks like. After you log in, you see a welcome page, and if you go into, you will see three key areas: integrations. This is where you build integrations. And in integrations, you have all these components in the designer area. So you could, you will typically create connections first. Say, for example, if you have to build integration to connect Salesforce with ERP Cloud, what do you have to do? You will have to create two connections first, one to connect to the ERP Cloud and another to connect to the Salesforce. And then you will go ahead and create an integration to, and in that integration, you will plug in the flow. Like you might receive a feed from Salesforce, and you might want to, you might receive the customer details that are created in Salesforce automatically. You might build a service which will automatically be triggered by Salesforce as and when the customer account is created, and that service will receive a payload from Salesforce, and you will invoke a couple of web services, and the customer gets created in ERP Cloud. And to achieve this use case, you would probably go ahead and create a couple of connections first. And when you create a connections, you will have to use adapters. So these components, yes, these are all the supporting components that can be used to build integrations. You have connections, lookups, packages. We'll talk about each one of them probably in later sessions. But the reason why I'm here is, so if you click on create integration, let's not get into create integration. So if you click on this service that is already configured, service, a web service or integration, everything means the same. Okay, if you open up an integration, it's taking a bit of time to load. Not sure what has gone wrong there. Okay, so as you can see here, the integration is loaded. So this is how you could build the flows. Of course, you could use different patterns in there. But what I'm trying to highlight is, so how do you build integrations? All you have to do is go to the place where you want to add a node. And when I say add a node, you could invoke a web service, you could invoke a database adapter or an FTP adapter. So depending on what action you want to perform, all you have to do is click on the plus icon, and you could search for the component that you want to add. Say, for example, if you want to invoke ERP Cloud, you will use the ERP Cloud connection. You will add the connection, and you will configure the endpoint. You'll provide details, whatever is required in there, and then you will click OK. The node gets added automatically onto the integration. So it's like you use a drag and drop approach, you use the configuration based approach, and the same approach will work for a PCS and VBCS as well. So all you need to have in your laptop to build integrations or a PCS or VBCS is a web browser. Nothing else apart from this. And yes, that's what it says. It simplifies the integration build. And what components do you have in OIC? You have 4 components. Application integration. We typically refer to this as ICS. Process automation, which is supported by Process Cloud Service. VBCS, it stands for Visual Builder Cloud Service. And integration analytics. This is mostly to do with the analytics standpoint. And all these, you have 3 cloud services and analytics work area, all included as part of a single unified cloud service that is called Oracle Integration Cloud. And what is OIC? It's an integration product. It is a PaaS product offered by Oracle, which is typically used by clients to support their ERP cloud implementation projects or HCM cloud implementation projects. So whenever typically clients implement the Oracle cloud, it doesn't matter which cloud we are talking about, but whenever they implement Oracle cloud, to build integrations required in that implementation project, clients typically use OIC. Okay, so
sure. Question: should we get a separate license for each one of them, or one license comes with all 4?
One license will work.
But if I use only ICS, can I just?
It depends on. No, OIC is available in 2 flavors: a standard edition and enterprise edition. I'll talk about it in the last slide.
Okay.
So it's available in 2 flavors. So depending on what components you need, a client will opt for either standard edition or enterprise edition. Okay, so if they need all 3 products, they can opt for enterprise edition. If they just need integrations, ICS and VBCS, then they could go for standard edition. Okay. And what does application integration help you with, or ICS? It simplifies SaaS to SaaS connectivity as well as SaaS to on-premise connectivity. And it helps you to reach market faster because it uses configuration based approach, which ensures that you could build even the complex integration in really quick. I mean, it takes a very less amount of time when compared to other integration tools to build an integration in OIC. Okay, and what do you get? It's a web-based tool. All you get is a point-and-click experience. And most importantly, what helps you to build integrations really quick is there will be a lot of out-of-the-box functionality available. And what do I mean by that? You have a lot of pre-built adapters available for top applications. Say, for example, whenever you have to connect 2 systems together, say Salesforce with CRM Cloud, or Salesforce with ERP Cloud, or say ERP Cloud with HCM Cloud, or any systems for that matter, or it could be eBusiness Suite with ERP Cloud, or PeopleSoft with ERP Cloud. So whenever you have to connect multiple systems, the first thing you need to establish connectivity with that system, a source or destination, it doesn't matter. You need to establish connectivity with that system first. How do you establish connectivity from OIC to that system? You will have to create a connection first. And when you have to create a connection, if you click on create, to create a connection, Oracle has given a lot of pre-built adapters, a lot of out-of-the-box adapters, and you have all sort of adapters in this list. You will have social media adapters. You will have adapters to connect to different products such as SAP, Apache. Okay, so you have Eloqua. You have adapters, technology adapters like file adapter, FTP adapter, REST adapter, SOAP adapter. You have, if I scroll down, you have a lot of adapters related to Oracle products. So if you type in Oracle, you have so many adapters available. Okay, so you have adapter available to connect to all the cloud services provided by Oracle. It could be Engagement Cloud, CPQ Cloud, Commerce Cloud, etc. You have a cloud adapter available to connect to eBusiness Suite, Oracle Database, on-premise database, or Oracle DBaaS, Database as a Service. And you have adapters to connect to other cloud applications such as Salesforce. And yeah, you have quite a few options when it comes to adapters. You could go through this list, and this long list of adapters certainly gives an edge to OIC, because the moment you see an adapter here, what it internally means is you could easily connect to that system. Okay, so if you have to connect to, say, an FTP adapter. Okay, so say for example, if you have to pull a file from a FTP server, what you could do, you could create a connection with FTP server, and that gives you ability to that helps you to establish connectivity with SFTP server from OIC. And the moment you establish that connectivity, you could do anything you want in there. You could pull the files, you could delete the files, you could move the files across, and you could do all that stuff. And similarly, the same logic can be extrapolated to other applications as well. Say, for example, if you have to do something in ERP Cloud, okay, if you have to pull some information from ERP Cloud or push something to ERP Cloud, all you have to do is create a connection with ERP Cloud, type in the URL there, and here type in the username and password, and that's it. You will be able to establish. You will be able to talk to Oracle ERP Cloud from OIC instance. And the same thing applies to other destination systems as well, other systems for which you have adapters. So it's a very long list. You could go through it. And the next question that comes to your mind is, what if the system that I want to talk to is not present in this? Say, for example, you want to talk to an application, or you want to establish connectivity with an application, but that application does not have an adapter here. Okay, in that case, what you could do, you have two adapters that could help you in such scenarios. You have an adapter, SOAP adapter, and you have REST adapter. So if you have any application for which you don't have an adapter in this list, if there are SOAP or REST services available to talk to that application, what you could do is you could create that SOAP or REST connections. You could use the SOAP or REST adapters, and you could use the SOAP or web services that will work with that application. You could create a connection with these adapters, the SOAP or REST adapters. Use that web services in that connection, and that way you will be able to talk to the application indirectly. Not indirectly, it's directly, but you're not using using a specific adapter for that application, but you're talking to it through a SOAP service or a REST web service. Okay, so since you have a lot of adapters available, you could easily connect to most of the applications that clients typically use. Okay, the moment you get a use case, you could quickly create a connection with those systems, and then you could go ahead and build integrations.
One question, Shiva. So you said about on-premise. So does it mean that it's going to replace Oracle Server? Can it?
No, it's not going to replace it. No, it cannot replace Oracle Server. It's like yes, say for example, if you want to connect ERP Cloud with eBusiness Suite, if you want to pick some data from ERP Cloud and dump it in eBusiness Suite, you will be able to do it with a concept called agent. SOVA and OIC each has its own advantages. OIC is not primarily meant to. It's not built to replace SOVA. It is built as an integration product to enable Oracle Cloud implementation projects, not exactly to replace SOA. For SOA, you have SOA CS as well, SOA Cloud Service. That is a different product altogether. If you are looking for a counterpart of SOA on-premise, SOA Cloud Service is an answer. But there are many things that you could do in OIC which you cannot do in SOA Cloud Service, because of which OIC has become famous when compared to SOA Cloud Service. OIC is not exactly a replacement for SOA, but yes, it has got its own capabilities.
Yeah, but my point is, why will a client pay 2 licenses? Why should I need OIC in an Oracle SOA Cloud, right?
No, they will go for Oracle Integration Cloud. They won't go for SOA Cloud. Why do they need a SOA Cloud again?
Yeah, that's what. See, Oracle is not positioning it well. That's what I'm trying to say. If I have a requirement, I mean, it looks like to me that Oracle OIC can fulfill my requirement.
Yes, it can fulfill your requirement, but you cannot see a client. Most of the clients, when they buy OIC, it is certainly not going to be their first integration product, and it is not going to be their last. Okay, many clients do use multiple integration products, and that will be the case with OIC as well. So you might have built 500 plus integrations already in SOA, and all of a sudden, if they buy OIC, there are some things that might not be possible in OIC which you would have already done in SOA, and all of that need not be migrated into OIC. So if you are exactly looking for a specific use case, why OIC? Is there any specific need for me to go for OIC when I already have a SOA? There are some specific use cases like what I was talking about so far, like ease with which you could build integrations, connect SaaS with SaaS and SaaS with on-premise. But yes, if you ask me, yes, what you could do in SOA, you could also do in OIC. But SOA has been there for a couple of decades now. But OIC has been. I mean, it's been in the offering for close to 5 years now, not more than that.
So it means there is some use case where you have to use Oracle SOA, and some use case Oracle you have to use Oracle OIC.
Yeah, you will have some specific cases there. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And whenever you get a new requirement, yes, the connections and the availability of many pre-built adapters, they ensure that you would easily connect to those systems and build integrations to connect them together. But whenever you get a new requirement to build an integration or a service, you don't have to start from scratch. You don't need to directly create a connection and start building integration. Before you do that, you could pause for a moment, and you could it's worth to pay a visit to Oracle Marketplace. There is a website called Oracle Marketplace. So this is like a marketplace where you have a pre-built end-to-end integration flows available. Okay, so if you come here, before you get so after you get a client requirement to build integration to connect the systems, after you get the requirement, before you build it, before you start building it from scratch in OIC, you could come here and see if you can find a recipe available here. See if you can find something similar to your client requirement, and see if someone has already built it for you. Say, for example, if I want to so I've got a requirement to create journals in ERP Cloud. Okay, so a client has told me that a file will be placed in a SFTP server, and my integration needs to pick it up based on a schedule, and it needs to load the file into ERP Cloud, and then it has to send back a notification to the client. So that is the requirement that I've got. So journals, it belongs to Financials Cloud. So what I'll do is, instead of building that integration straight away, I'll come to Cloud Marketplace. I'll search for Financials Cloud, and you will see a lot of end-to-end integration flows built by other developers and published here. Some of them could be paid, and some of them could be free. You could apply the filters to see what you are interested in. If you are interested only in the free applications, you could apply a free filter. You could see that there is a recipe available which will do do the exact same thing that I've just explained. Okay, so this particular recipe, if you read the description of it, so it the integration, pre-built integration flows or integration flow built in OIC, it's referred to as a recipe. Okay, so this particular recipe, if you look at it, what does it do? It will read the file from FTP location, does a simple transformation, and imports it into ERP Cloud. And this is what I exactly need for my client. So instead of you building this this entire integration flow from scratch, right from starting with the connections, what you could do is you could get this application for free. All you have to do is plug in your email ID, and you will be able to download the archive file. It will most probably be a package archive file. You will download that archive file. You will come into the integrations. You will go into packages, and you could import that file here automatically. So with couple of mouse clicks, you could download it from here, and you could import that archive file here. And once you do it, the integrations that are used or that are part of this recipe will become available for you in the in your integration instance. So all you have to do is you will have to edit the integration or configure the connections first to make them point to the systems that you are interested in. Okay, you should edit the FTP and ERP Cloud connections to make them point to your FTP server and ERP Cloud connection of your client instance. So that's another advantage you get with the pre-built integration flows. And it's quite easy to deploy and maintain integrations. We'll talk about it more probably tomorrow or day after when we talk about the navigation. There's a concept called packages, which you could use to group integrations together. And when you have to migrate integrations from one instance to another instance, say if there are 30 integrations or 50 integrations that are part of a package, and when it's time to move the integrations, when it's time to move all of them from SAT to UAT or UAT to production, you don't have to migrate one at a time. All you could do is go to the package, export the package, and import it in higher instance. So that way, with just a couple of mouse clicks, you will be able to migrate integrations in bulk from one instance to another instance. Yes, the deployment is also easy, maintenance is also easy. And you have when you build an integration, and the first thing you have to do in OIC is you need to pick a style. And you have 6 styles available, 6 integration styles available in OIC. Each one has its own significance. It takes at least half an hour to 40 minutes to talk about these integration styles. I'll talk about them in detail tomorrow because I have other aspects to focus on today, other concepts to talk about. So these are you could with OIC you could build integrations of these 6 styles. File transfer. You could use this style to move files across FTP servers. You could move files across a network seamlessly and securely. You could use basic routing to connect one application with another application, but basic routing has a limitation that you could connect only 2 applications. If you look at these 2 styles, publish to OIC and subscribe to OIC, these 2 styles use a OIC publish or subscriber channel. This is similar to the queue concept that you have in other integration products. Like you could have some applications or applications can publish messages to OIC with the help of a service that is built using this style. So if you build a service with this style, and if the application invokes that integration, the message that is received into this integration will be published to the OIC channel. Okay, you can think of it as a queue. You won't be able to view the queue, view the channel to see what messages are in there, but yes, the messages will be preserved in there. And you could build another integration of subscribe to OIC style. And this particular integration, when you build this one, it will ask you which publish to OIC integration do you want to subscribe to. And after you subscribe to a specific publish to OIC integration, as soon as this integration is invoked and the message published to OIC channel, the second integration you have built using a subscribe to OIC style will get invoked automatically the moment message reaches OIC channel, because you are subscribing to that particular message in OIC channel. This gets invoked automatically, and you could deliver the message to the destination system. It could be a web service call, or it could be a database call, or FTP server call. And you have other integration styles available like app-driven orchestration style and scheduled orchestration style. Say, for example, if you want your integration to work on the basis of a schedule. Okay, so nobody is going to invoke your integration. Client will not invoke your integration. It should get invoked automatically. It should run based on a schedule. Say, for example, if you want your integration to run every 10 minutes, you could define a schedule, or you could use this particular integration style to build that integration, and you could define a schedule and define it in such a way that it gets triggered every 10 minutes. So this particular integration style is typically used to do the batch or bulk processing. And this is typically used to do those automation jobs, like every day in the morning, you have typical loads that needs to go into destination systems, right? You will have files being placed in SFTP server by the other data sources, and your integration needs to pick them up and process them or deliver them in the destination systems or load them into destination systems. So that kind of use cases are the typical use cases for scheduled orchestrations. An app-driven orchestration, this is driven by the application, meaning these applications or these integrations, some of them need to be triggered explicitly by the client. And yes, these two integration styles are extensively used in OIC when compared to others. It does not mean others are not used, but these two are extensively used for the reason that these two integration styles will let you use all the features that are available in integrations work area. You could do the fault handling, you could do the mapping, you could use for each loop or while loops. You could do the conditional checks. Okay, so you could send notifications. Any feature available in OIC, especially in the integrations work area, you will be able to use them in the integrations if you use these two styles. Usually 80 to 90% of the integrations you build, you will be using these two integration styles. Let's talk about PCS and VBCS also briefly. As part of this training course, most of the training courses that are available in the market, even though they call it OIC training course, they will cover only the ICS part, but we do cover PCS as well as VBCS as part of this training course. What is PCS meant for? It stands for Process Cloud Service, and it is typically used to build the custom business process required by the client. It could be a custom business process, or it could be a custom approval process. And whenever you have to build a custom business process, you don't have to start from scratch. You have some pre-built templates provided by Oracle, and this is a list of pre-built templates provided by Oracle. So if you have to build a custom business process for, say, travel approval, you don't have to build it from scratch. You have a template provided by Oracle, which you could use to create your own process application. And since you're using a template, that does not mean that you cannot customize it. It's just that you make use of a template, you copy it to your process application, and after that you could make any change you want in there. You could change it upside down. The advantage with the pre-built templates is it saves quite a bit of time for you in case the client requirement matches with what is provided by Oracle, with the templates provided by Oracle. Even if it is not exactly matching with the templates provided by Oracle, if at least the use case matches with what you get in these templates, at least 50 or 60%, it makes sense to use the template and customize it rather than building it from scratch. And when you have to build a custom business process, again, you have a visual designer like the one I have shown for integrations. All you have to do is, as part of the custom business process, you might also have to build some forms to receive inputs into the process. To build those forms or to build the custom business process, you have visual designer available. All you have to do is drag and drop. If you have to say.
Hello.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to know how this PCS is different from Oracle EBS workflows.
It is different from EBS workflow in the sense ERP has got its own workflows. The PCS that you are seeing in OIC, it has got nothing to do with the workflows that you have in ERP Cloud. This is not this is completely different from ERP Cloud workflows. This is typically used to build any additional or a custom business process that your client is following apart from what you get in ERP Cloud. So for if it's a sales order approval or purchase order approval or any HCM approvals, it has got its own flows in ERP Cloud. This PCS is completely different from what you get in ERP Cloud. EBS workflows can be compared to ERP Cloud workflows, not with PCS. What you do here is, if there is any custom business process that your client is following, which is not anywhere related to cloud, or if you don't have that flow available in cloud, what clients can do is they could build those flows using PCS, and they could achieve those approvals or the required business process flow. Okay. And yes, you does that answer your question, or you need any more clarification?
Okay. I think it has answered my question. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, you could design custom business process quickly because you have a visual designer, and you could quickly move them around and build it. Unless work changes, that's fine.
It's like designing the cycles of business process like P2P, O2C, and all.
Yeah, it's not extensive cases like that. If you want to understand what kind of business process you can build in PCS, this should give you an idea, this slide. So if the client is following some travel approval process, you don't have travel approval process in ERP Cloud, right? Or a code discount process, or loan application, or a parallel request, or a performance management. So if it's a simple business process, a simple custom business process, which is not part of ERP Cloud, then you could make use of a PCS to build that custom business process. You could run the data through the approval process, and then you could push it to the destination system. The way PCS is used is, if you build a process using PCS, say for example, you build a travel approval process, okay? You will not be able to use it as a standalone one. So the way this will be used is, a web application will be built using VBCS, okay, web application, and users will be accessing that web application, and they will be submitting requests. If you take the case of travel approval, what you will do is, you will build a travel VBCS application for travel. Okay, you will build a VBCS app, web application for travel, to maintain the travel request. Employee will access that web application, and they will submit a travel request. And if the travel request needs to go through approval process, and in most of the cases it should, right? And in such case, what do you do? From VBCS, you will invoke the travel process that you have built in PCS to run it through the approval cycle. So once you submit it, it might probably go to your manager, and it might also go to his manager, depending on the type of travel that you're it again depends on the client requirement, and depends on the type of travel that you have raised a request for. So it will go through the approval cycle. The travel request will go through the approval cycle, and once a travel approval is obtained, you could probably send a notification to the employee asking him to go ahead and book the travel. Or if it is something like say for example, absence management request, what you could do, you will again build a VBCS app from where an employee submits an absence management request, and that goes through approval process. And once it is approved, if you want a leave application or if you want leave record to be deposited in HCM Cloud or inserted into HCM Cloud, you could see if there is any SOAP service or a REST service available or provided by Oracle. You could invoke it from PCS, and that will create that will log a leave in the HCM Cloud application. So it works this way. So it's like a PCS will never work as a standalone application. You will first build a web application using VBCS, and to that VBCS, if that VBCS application needs an approval process or some custom business process flow, that business process flow will be built in PCS. And after the approvals are obtained, if the data needs to be pushed to some destination system, you could directly invoke the SOAP or REST services from PCS itself directly. Or if it is, or if you have to do some complex processing, and if you think integration is very much required, you could build an integration in OIC and you could invoke that integration from PCS. And in that integration, you could do whatever processing is required, and then you could deliver that to the destination system or deliver the data to the destination system. So it's like VBCS, PCS, and integration, and from integration to destination system. It need not always take that flow from VBCS. It could directly go to the destination system. VBCS also could invoke REST APIs. If in case the application that you are building does not need any approvals, you could directly push the data to destination system. But if it needs some approval process, or if it needs some custom business process, then you will build PCS process in PCS, and you will invoke it from VBCS. And in PCS, after the business process is over, you could again push it to destination system from PCS directly, or you could take a route using integrations again. That's how these components work together.
Okay, if my client wants to have a different technology, let's say they want to use .NET or Java for VBCS, can that call, how is PCS exposed? Can I call PCS from a Java or a .NET?
No, I think PCS can only be invoked from VBCS.
Okay, so they're not like a service, it doesn't have a REST endpoint or anything?
No, it doesn't. It does not have a REST endpoint. VBCS application gets exposes the REST endpoints. You will be able to invoke VBCS application from a different applications using REST endpoints, but PCS will not expose the REST endpoints. You will have to invoke a PCS process only from VBCS.
Oh, so that's a limitation then. So if I want to use PBS, I have to go with VBCS. Okay.
Yeah, if you have to use PCS, you have to use VBCS. Okay. And VBCS, it can be used to build web and mobile applications. It stands for Visual Builder Cloud Service, and you could build both mobile and web applications using VBCS. Oracle documentation says that you could build it in minutes. Minutes is a bit of exaggeration, but yes, you have a lot of quick start options available in VBCS, which can help you to build an application and build the correct functionality into application. So whenever you build a web application, what sort of functionality do you plug into it? It would need the correct functionality, right? It should have a create page, update page, delete page. So if you have to build an application and if you have to add that correct functionality to the application, you have quick start options provided by Oracle, which will help you to attach that functionality quite easily. Yeah, there are quite a few options available in there, which will make your life easy as a developer, as a web application developer. So the moment you think about web application, a lot of things will come to your mind, right? Like how do you build the data source? How do you build the user interface? How do you link them together? How do you come up with the bindings and the routings? So all of it, most of it will be abstracted by VBCS for you, and you will be focusing on key things rather than worrying about the underlying details. And that has a downside as well. VBCS is still it's maturing, but it's yeah, most of the things you will be able to achieve, most of the client requirements, but there might be some requirements or some features that might not be available in VBCS, which your client is looking for. Because VBCS and PCS, it's only 2 years in the market, but yes, Oracle is rapidly upgrading them, incorporating a lot of features into them.
You said .NET or Java can call VBCS, right? So correct. Only the point where I need to integrate, I will call the VBCS, right? So that I get that PBS, right? I can do that too.
You could do that, yes. In case there is something that's not available in VBCS. But in such scenarios, you don't have to use VBCS at all. In such case, you could bypass VBCS and you could directly invoke an integration that you have built in OIC. But yes, if you need PCS, then you will you can use VBCS as an entry point.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So how? I mean, you have any build UI? I mean, using this VBCS, how it looks? I mean, maybe you can do it later. Yeah. Okay, that's pretty cool. That looks very pretty. The other one.
This one. You could build applications like this one. Okay, takes a bit of time to launch the web app. But yes, what can you do? You could build web and mobile applications. Yeah, this is how the application is going to look like. Yeah, you could design the homepage the way you want it. But this is just one of the simple applications we have built. You could see the expense reports. You could create a new one. You could key in the details and save it, or you could edit an expense report. And when you edit an expense report, you could change the details in there. You could also build complex applications like where you could have a parent and child relationship, and you could also plug in sorting and filtering and other logic as well into the VBCS applications. Okay. And yes, it's pre-integrated with applications. What this means is, yes, you could invoke the when you want to invoke integrations or web services from VBCS, there is a limitation. You can only invoke REST services from VBCS. You cannot invoke SOAP services. And automated code generation, as you build your user interface. Say, for example, if you look at this one, you have this. You will see the user interface here. And as you start building your user interface, you will notice that the code gets auto-generated in the background. So as you build the user interface, as you build this using a UI approach, if you go into the code tab, you will be able to see the code getting generated automatically. So yes, automated code generation happens in VBCS, and you have a single button deployment to devices. And you could also extend it with JavaScript and HTML in case you want to write any specific validation for say for a specific field. Okay, and say if that validation, there are some standard validations available in VBCS, and if that standard validation is not available, you could write a JavaScript function quickly, and you could invoke a JavaScript function as a validation on top of a particular field, or you could attach that JavaScript function as a validation function to a particular field. And this is how the user interface looks like. And what flavors OIC is available in? It comes in 2 flavors, standard and enterprise. What are the differences between 2? In standard, you get integrations and VBCS. In enterprise, you get PCS as well, Process Cloud Service. And in enterprise, apart from PCS or along with PCS, you also get on-premise application adapters, such as eBusiness Suite adapter or a PeopleSoft or JD Edwards adapters. Like there are other on-premise application adapters as well. So if your client has a requirement to connect to on-premise applications, then they will go for enterprise edition. Or if they have a need to build custom business process using PCS, then they go for enterprise edition. And if that is not the case, then if they don't need on-premise application adapters and if they don't need PCS, they could opt for a standard edition. And when clients opt for a specific edition, it does not mean that it's freezed. At any point in time, they could switch between the editions. Okay, so when they opt for an instance, if they opt for a standard edition, tomorrow, with the visibility that they have today, they might have thought that they don't need PCS, but a situation might change 1 month down the line, right? And when they realize that they have to use PCS as well, they could easily switch from standard to enterprise. Of course, the pricing differs from standard to enterprise. It's usually double the price that you have to pay for enterprise edition when compared to standard edition. Any questions?
Hi, I have a question. It's actually concerned with ICS. Okay, so when we are typically doing the development with ICS, then how many instances or how many nodes we need to take?
You will as you get multiple instances for eBusiness Suite implementations or ERP cloud implementations, you will also have multiple instances for OIC as well. So typically, you build integrations in your development OIC instance, and when it's time to move into SAT or UAT phase, you will get a different OIC instance wherein you will deploy all the integrations, process and VBCS applications you have built in dev instance. You will deploy them to the UAT instance, UAT OIC instance. And similarly, you have one for production. Pretty much same as eBusiness Suite or ERP Cloud.
Okay, so basically 3 instances you mean to say, dev, test, and prod.
There is no hard and fast rule. It's not 2, 3, or 4. Some projects use 2, some projects use 3, some projects use 4, and some projects use even 5. It all depends on how thorough testing that your client is doing, and what is the project plan that your client is following. There are many factors which decides how many Oracle integration cloud instances will be required for that specific implementation project. But it depends.
And how typically the migration happens, like, how is it secured that, any unintentional changes shouldn't happen and all? That's like, what access does a developer has basically, and who does the migration thing?
Migration, it will be, so controlling the migration will happen after UAT, but till UAT, it will be the developers who will be, certainly, if there are multiple developers working in a project, it could be one or two of them will be nominated as leads for migration. And migrating integrations, it's quite easy. Like I said, you could use packages or you could use integrations. So if you're talking about overriding the changes, intentional overriding or unintentional overriding, it does not happen too frequently. And if you have built that integration, you will be migrating it, and you know when to migrate, and yeah, you will take care of it. So when you make some changes in the dev instance.
Sorry, Shiva, Gurudat here. So you mean to say that there is no separate version controller for this?
No, you have a
especially in
version
terms of code migration.
If you're talking about the code migration, you will have to use some version control tool to download the artifacts and keep it. But if you talk about building versions of the integrations or versions in DCS or VBCS, when you're building the integrations, yes, of course, you have versioning concept in there. You could create a major version or a minor version. So whenever you build a service, if you get a CR and if you have to make some change, of course, you could create a new version of it, and that's how you proceed with the build. This is one versioning that I know. And if you're talking about the version control from migration standpoint, yes, you will when you migrate them in the first shot, say for example from SIT to UAT, you have to dump everything. In that case, you will migrate with the help of packages. And later on, when you have to do some incremental migration, say you've got CRs for say 5 or 6 integrations. So 2 or 3 developers will work on them, and they will migrate only those integrations. They will export those integration files, and they will import it in the higher instance. That's how they do it. That too, they will not edit the original version. They will create a they will create a version of it, and they will migrate a new version to the higher instance. So that way you could protect the whole.
In your real life project, Shiv, you would be using GitHub and Jenkins, right? You'll not be doing a manual migration like this, migrating yourself. There will be a CI/CD operation like using a Jenkins to deploy it. Do you use that?
No, I have not used a CI/CD pipeline for this one. We do a manual migration with the help of IAR files or VAR files. Yeah. If you want to have that kind of in the real life also.
So, but if they wanted to standardize this process, can they use GitHub and Jenkins?
I'm not particularly sure on that because I haven't seen any project using that, and I could not see any feature which will help you to integrate with a GitHub or any other product for that matter.
Okay.
Yeah, for integrations you don't see any option.
Yeah, and one other thing
I think for VBCS.
Go ahead.
For VBCS alone, I think there is an option to integrate with GitHub, but not for integrations or PCS.
Okay, got it. And one other thing I did not see is, do you have any support for a Swagger or RAML? like where I do an API design?
No, you cannot do an API design here. API design or building APIs cannot happen here. But yes, you could, if there is an API available, you could build service with that. If you have a specification built, in outside of OIC, you could use that abstract WSDL to build the service. That is possible.
Okay, but let's say use case where I have my vendors and they are trying to create a customers, and I have to expose an API so that anybody can call this API to create a customer in the Oracle Cloud. So
correct.
How do you want to? I mean, you should definitely need some kind of a gateway. You need to have some kind of a YAML specifications.
In that case, yeah, in that case, what you do is you will build an abstract WSDL or a custom WSDL file, and in that custom WSDL file, you will mention the fields that your client needs to pass to you, or the vendor needs to pass, which are basically, or the information that is basically needed to create a customer in ERP Cloud. You will create a custom WSDL file, and you will use that as a gateway. And whenever clients invoke the service that you're building in OIC, they will be prompted to enter that information or enter pass on the fields that you pass in that you mention in the WSDL. And with that information, I'll go ahead and invoke the services provided by Oracle, which will let me create a customer in ERP. Okay, you could build a custom WSDL file, and you could create the trigger connection with that. And that way, when you expose your service, when clients try to consume your service, they will be prompted to pass that information.
And it can support JSON, right? JSON REST APIs.
Yes, it can. Okay. Yes.
So, Shiv, one more question here. Can we use this SOA integrated repository of EBS here for APIs?
For APIs, you could use a standard SOAP or REST APIs provided by Oracle. Apart from that, there is an API cloud service offered by Oracle. If you have an API cloud service subscription, and if you have built and deployed some APIs in there, you could connect to them. But apart from these two, I don't think you can use anything else in OIC. If it is a standard SOAP or REST service which you could invoke from outside of OIC, you will certainly be able to invoke it from integrations as well. If you have built a SOAP service, if you have built a web service using SOAP, using SOA, and if that is something that can be invoked from outside of OIC or from any other testing tool, you could easily invoke it from OIC also. There's nothing that stops you.
Okay.
Shiva, I have one question regarding the OIC.
Yes.
How can we mark the sensitive information in logs? Because right now in my project, I'm facing this difficulty to mark the sensitive information like username, password. Is there any way, because we raised the SR with the Oracle teams, but we got a response that there is no provision to mask the sensitive information. They ask.
Okay.
Hello.
Why? Yeah, I've got your point. But like I said, like I said, there's no provision at this point. But I want to understand what is it that you are trying to mask here?
The username, password. Suppose I'm using sensitive, like we are doing integration with the banking domains or banking systems. So this is a more sensitive. If someone is taking take example of any product support guy, will have access to this directly bank accounts or any integrations are there, so they can easily access these APIs. So we need to avoid this kind of security leaks, data leaks.
You will not. Okay. So even if you talk about integrations with the banking systems, you will the way one feature available in OIC is you could, whenever you have to deal with sensitive informations, if you are dealing it in terms of files, you could always encrypt the file, and all through the journey you could keep it encrypted. That way you could protect the information from being exposed. But that will usually help when the file is in transport. But if you're talking about some sensitive information that is hard coded in the integrations, then yes, there is no way at this point to mask it at this point. Okay, so but at the connection levels, yes, it will be masked. The passwords are not exposed. But I'm not particularly sure on what. Can you give me one use case so that we can discuss it further?
Okay, take example of one login API where the third party is exposed their login credential via the post body. So we are posting the user name and password along with the authentication token. That means they are having a third level of security. But the username and password is going inside the body. So if you enable the tracing, in tracing it is clearly that body is visible.
No, you will not enable trace, right? You will enable trace only when you are building the integrations. Why do you enable trace in once you go live?
No, actually, what is happening? We need to keep audit logs also. It's a company policy. Whenever we are doing a third integration with third party, we have to always log the request and response for audit purpose. But
no, log the request
currently,
okay.
Yes.
You could log the request and response without logging the payload. There are two things. When you activate it, when you activate an integration, say for example, if you take this one, take this one. This is configured. This is in configured status. If I try to activate it, I can enable tracing. And I can uncheck this. I can opt not to include payload.
But with this one, we will not able to understand. So your audit team is asking for what are the data we are sending to the third party, and what are the data we are responding. That means we are getting from
It's
the
like
third party. Yes.
Then there is nothing we could do about it in OIC at this point in time.
Currently in Spring Boot, we are doing this one where I'm asking the details and doing preserving.
Okay.
But in OIC, we are facing this difficulty. Just because of this one, we need to go for the JCS because the security team is not allowing. So this is the big advantage for I can see in the OIC. We already reported this issue to the Oracle team, but still they said that they don't have provision to mask this information.
Okay, there will be. I think what you said is an exceptional case. Not anyone. Most of the clients will be okay with not capturing the payload. Capturing the payload, it's certainly not allowed and not recommended as well in the production instance unless you have a very specific use case, like you said, for your client. They need it for some specific reason. But usually in integrations, in production environments, you don't capture payloads.
No, actually, in banking sector also I work. There also same situation was there. We used to always capture the request and response, whenever we send for the third party. In production also.
Okay, it might be. So you might have worked in one or two projects, but that might not be the case applicable for all the banking clients, right? You cannot generalize it, but yes, if that is a requirement, yeah, there's no point in you and me discussing it further. So it's like, yes, if the client need it, that feature is not available in OIC. But we have implemented OIC for many banking clients. We've done it recently for a CM Commercial Bank, which is a national bank in Thailand, and we never had any issue with including a payload. Nobody has requested us to include a payload. So it might be one of case that you might have seen. I'm not trying to defend OIC here. It doesn't matter to me. But yes, if you need that masking feature, that's not available. But most of the clients might not need that feature, and that is what I'm trying to put across to you.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Any other questions, guys?
Yeah, Shiv, another question. When you migrate the integration from one environment to another environment, do you have something like a property file or something where you dynamically change those values so that the higher environment will have different values?
You don't have properties file, but what happens is when you try to migrate a package from one instance to another one, you get an option to you get two options in there: import and configure. So when you hit import and configure, it will show you all the connections that are used in that package, and you could directly edit that. You could configure the values in there directly. You don't have properties file, but when you migrate migrate the files or integration from one instance to another instance, you will get a window opening up there to change the properties in there, like a dev ERP to SAT ERP, that way.
So every time I migrate the code, I have to enter that manually? Do you don't have a file that I can just drag it in?
No, you don't have a file.
Okay.
Yeah, but when you migrate it for the first time, you will have to edit the connection. But when you migrate it for the second time, you already have that connection available, right? You don't have to edit it again. When you have to do the incremental migration, yes, one time you have to do it. So if you are saying from dev to SAT and SAT to UAT, you will have to do it. Yes. Okay. Any other questions, guys? You could go through the course content that's given in the handout.
And one last question I have is on the certifications. Do you think with this course I can go for a certification?
Certainly you can, but the only downside with certification is Oracle has one certification called Application Integration Specialist. I don't remember the exact name, but there is one certification for Integration Specialist, Application Integration Specialist for OIC, and not exactly for OIC. It's an Application Integration Specialist certification, and that certification has 3 components. It has ICS, it has PCS, Process Cloud Service that you're building that you have in OIC, and it also includes a SOA CS. And that certification does not include VBCS. Instead of VBCS, you have a SOA CS included as part of that certification.
Oh,
but
okay.
even if you have a minimal or a basic knowledge of a SOA, you will be able to clear that. That should not be a problem. Majority of the questions do come from integration and TCS.
And what is the pass percentage? Is it 70%?
First percent pass. Yeah, it's 65%, I believe, 65 or 70%. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Actually, I have
Okay,
a question.
I'll drop
Like,
off now. Yes.
Actually,
Yes, please
see,
go ahead.
my thing is, I just want to get my hands dirty on the instance actually. So in that case,
Okay.
like, provide me the separate user ID password to get logging into the instance, and what is the duration, or like what is like,
And there will
what is
be
the
a single
duration for
user.
that instance? Okay.
There will be a single user that I'll be using to show you how that I'll use to build integrations in class, and the same user will be provided to everyone. No multiple users, single user. But regarding the duration, Training Institute can confirm how long you will have access to the ICS instance. Okay,
Correct.
sorry, the OIC instance, not ICS. You could check with the Training Institute on the access part. How long will you have access? It's not something that I can. Yeah, they will let you know. But yes, you do get access to OIC instance. You will also get access to one FTP server, SFTP server, because for some of the integration use cases, we have to deal with files, and we certainly need to leverage SFTP server for that. And we will also give you access to ERP cloud instance, because for some integration use cases, we have to deal with ERP cloud instance. And we also deal with other systems such as Salesforce. But you could easily create a free account in Salesforce. We don't have to create one and pass it on to you. Okay, that's from the access standpoint. You get access to ERP cloud, OSC, and SFTP server.
Is NetSuite free?
Sorry?
NetSuite. Do you think the NetSuite is free? NetSuite. Oracle NetSuite.
NetSuite. No, I'm not sure on the NetSuite. Yeah.
And what is the duration of this course? How many weeks?
Duration, it depends on how many hours we have. So it typically takes 40 to 45 hours to cover all the 3 components. And it depends on how many hours we have per day and how many days per week. So we'll agree on the schedule. It'll probably be a weekend batch, a Saturday and Sunday, and we will have long sessions, or probably 3-hour sessions on Saturday and 3-hour on Sunday. Yes, of course, we'll have a break in between. Yeah, you could do that math. Okay. And,
okay, so since it's a
yes,
first class, you're winding up early, but if it's a regular class, it's 3 hours class.
it will be, yes, it will be. Because it's a weekend, right? If you do only 1.5 hour or 2 hour course on a weekend, it will go on forever. So it will usually be, we will have at least 3 to.
And is it hands-on,
Yes,
right? In the end, do you have exercise and we'll do hands-on, each of us, right?
It's all hands-on. There's no. I will share the PPTs with you, and that PPTs will have instructions about how you can build the service. But I will not make use of PPTs very much in the session. Yes, if there is some concept that I need to explain, I'll go to the PPT, but it'll all be hands-on. So I'll be building integrations in class. You could practice along after. I mean, you could practice build the integrations over the week. And if you get stuck at any particular point, you could drop an email to Institute. They will send it to me. I'll respond back. Say, for example, you run into some issue, which we didn't get in the class when we are doing that integration. You could always take a snapshot and send it across. I'll respond back on top of it. If you practice something on Saturday, you could get it clarified on Sunday itself when we have the session.
So you said one account, everybody will log in. If everybody log in with the same account, there's no problem?
There's no problem. You won't be working on my service and I won't be working on your service, right? As long as you're working on independent services, there's no problem at all.
Okay, got it.
So simultaneously,
Any other
how many
questions,
people can?
There's no limit, I believe. I'm not particularly sure on the limit, but yes, easily 10 people can log in. So you won't face any issues with that.
Okay.
And one other question you said about the insight, the fourth component, insight and stream analytics, is not covered?
I'm not particularly sure on that one. Yeah, to be frank, it's no, you don't see it as a work area here. Oracle claims that it is one of the advantage with using OIC, but it's not a component that you have that you see in the work area. It's not that you build some component with analytics. It's just that the insight that you get with the analytics.
Yeah. And I did not see anything in your screen where you do some analytics. Like if I have to look at how this particular API integration is performing, where do I see that?
You go into monitoring and you will
okay.
Yeah, monitoring dashboards.
Okay.
You'll have enough information available here.
That's it. Okay, very good.
Shiva, are you in the call?
Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm there. Yes, sir. I'm there.
Okay. Okay. Once I'm done with the questions, I'll hand it over to you. You could brief them on the formalities.
Sure.
Yeah, I have one question regarding the suppose I'm developing one integration. I want to provide the log so that other user cannot be access this one. Is there any way to achieve this?
OIC will automatically do it for you. You don't have to do anything in specific for that. Say, for example, if you are building a service, if you are building a service, say, for example, I am editing this service, right? So let me go into this edit mode. And as long as I am in that edit page, anyone else tries to edit this one, they will see a log symbol there. They will see a log symbol.
No.
So
that feature I already know. I'm talking about suppose for 1 week or 2 weeks till my development get complete, I should other person should not get access to this particular integration. Is there any way? Because once I do the save and once I do the logout, other person can access it.
They can access it. One easy option is download the archive file and delete it from the integrations. There's no way to lock it. There's no way to hide it from other developers. But yes, if you don't want others to pick your service or make some changes in there, but I think integration specialists are professional enough to not tamper with others' work. And usually in real time, it will be you who will be working. So services are not shared across developers. So one integration, it will be typically only one integration specialist working in that at any point in time. And of course, if you leave, someone else might take over. But it will usually be one developer working on one service or one process or one VBCS app. There's no explicit lock functionality available if you need a simple answer, because there's no option available here which will help you to explicitly log the service till the time you come back.
Okay.
Okay. And
Okay,
if you probably don't want clients to send in requests, say for example, you have edited a service, you are editing a service that is already passed over to the client. If you don't want clients to send in requests to your service, you could deactivate it. You could deactivate it so that the service will be in configured status. If you want to protect it from the clients sending in requests, you could deactivate it and leave it in the configured status. And if you try to invoke this service from outside of OSE, you will get an error saying that the service that you're trying to reach is inactive. I'm not sure if your question is related to that.
No.
Yeah. Okay. But
Hey,
if that is what you're, yes.
Yeah. Shiv, the other question I have is, you are the instructor who is going to do the whole class, right? Nobody else.
Yes, of course. I'll be the one who will be taking the entire course.
Okay. And did you see any kind of real life in your project? Do you find any issues like performance or network latency in your projects with Oracle OIC? What kind of a real problem you had, limitations?
The limitations in the sense, yeah, you don't have automatic retry mechanism in OIC. In integrations, you don't have automatic retry. That's one area where we get a lot of issues in Go in production. But yes, you could program in some logic to cover that scenario. That's something that you get. And network latency, yes, you do get some issues for some clients. For one of the client, we've got that the resource crunch issue, and we've got the instance moved to a separate pod, and we have to ensure that enough resources are available to cater to the requests that are coming in and going out. But you don't see that latency issues quite often.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is deployed in one region, like, I mean, let's say you have a Salesforce. Do you know Salesforce can be deployed in multiple regions? Because let's say users are coming in from all over the country, right? East Coast, West Coast, and
this is deployed in one region. It's not deployed across regions, but it's usually deployed. You could pick the location depending on where you could get the maximum request from.
Okay.
Shiva, regarding this region-wise, suppose I have to restrict the service particularly IP-based, like only this organization should allow to access this service because we are on public. So how can we achieve this?
IP whitelist.
No, I think in OIC there is no. Yes.
Blacklist, whitelist, yeah.
Okay, so you're talking about clients invoking the service. You want it to be restricted,
correct.
is it?
Yes. On network level, right now, suppose right now what we are doing, we are allowing the particular services to be used. We are exposing the services, and the network level also we are providing the IP whitelisting. But in OIC, how can we achieve that?
In OIC, if you have a specific request to block some IP or to whitelist some IP, you could definitely work with Oracle Cloud team, I believe, to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
You will the IP address that will be assigned to your OIC instance. It will not be visible to you in OIC, but you could definitely work with Oracle Cloud to cater to some specific requirements like what you said.
But still, we are in discussion with the Oracle team. We are already raised SR. with the Oracle team,
Okay.
but still we are not getting any solution for this one. Like it's like a sensitive information. They don't have the provision to do the IP whitelisting. Till the discussion till today, we didn't got any proper response from Oracle.
Any response from them? Okay, fine. Yes, guys. Any other questions? Okay. Okay. I'll leave the timing part to the training institute. I'll drop off, and the institute will brief you on the formalities. Okay, so they'll talk about the timing, the access issue, that access question that some of you have raised, like do you get access to the recordings? Do you get access to the instance? How long you will have access? So all those questions, the training institute will brief you. Just stay on the call for close to 5 minutes, and then they'll brief you on this. Okay,
Hey,
I'm dropping off, Shiva.
Shiva, it's awesome to listen to your training. It's a good job you did. I think I like your training. I'm going to sign up. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Shiva, are you in the call?
Yes, sir, I'm there.
Okay, I'm dropping off. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi guys, kindly give some feedback on this. I'm launching here.